Nigerian Army demands increased budgetary allocation. The Senate criticizes poor welfare of inmates at Nigeria's correctional facilities.
Where you have a president who has shown up and who is insisting that you show up and you are not traveling this period, I don't see any MDA head, any minister who is going to fail.
And also joining me on the program is the chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Rules and Business. You're watching the Halo Chambers on TVC News. I am Tijesu Adewi. The Chief of Army Staff told the Joint Committee on Army that the aerial bombing of unarmed civilians in Tudumbiri area of Kaduna State is regrettable. He also appealed for improved funding to enhance the military operations and called for a review of the envelope budgeting system to help the armed forces adequately handle issues of welfare and other sundry matters. The lawmakers say they are ready to support the army and give legislative backing that will make them function better.
In Tudumbiri, Igabi, local government area of Kaduna State, on 3rd of December this year, was an error that the leadership and every personnel of the Nigerian Army regrets. And we are working to ensure that that does not repeat itself going forward. The envelope system leads to inadequate funding of the Nigerian Army for the performance of its constitutional duties. I hope and I implore that these distinguished committees will passionately look into this with a view to taking the army off the envelope budgeting system.
If we look at the budget of our military spending today and compare it with the budgets of other countries very close here in Africa, we realize that the money we are spending on our military and the armed forces is nothing comparable to what other countries, especially in Africa, are spending. So it is very important to make this point so that we know that we are yet to even get where we are supposed to get to, considering the challenges the Nigerian Army is facing today.
The joint budget defense session of the Committee on Interior was quite revealing. Lawmakers were shocked to find out that guard dogs were better fed and catered for than inmates.
These inmates are not being fed 3 times a day. It's impossible. Not that it is your fault. You can't give what you don't have. But to try to rationalize it that you feed 3 times a day, you must have a magician in your kitchen.
The House of Representatives Committee on FCT Area Councils is worried about the poor infrastructure within the council and the bad state of insecurity. They urge the Minister of State to ensure the situation is improved.
Let's ensure that we work together for the betterment of the indigenes and residents of the FCT area councils.
There are so many things that are related to area councils, so many problems and challenges. We work together towards development and betterment of residents of the territory and also visitors alike.
Lawmakers that served in the Third Republic were at the National Assembly to seek the support of 7 parliamentarians in facilitating the payment of their withheld entitlements since 1992. They want President Bola Tinubu and the leadership of the National Assembly to intervene.
If Abiola and Kingibe were being honored and recognized, we are the foot soldiers. We are the delegate that voted them into power. What about us? Why can we not be honored and be paid our salary and outstanding?
National Assembly to take the lead to ensure that what is right is done to the people. I also want to use this opportunity to call on Mr. President, who was part of the Assembly, to ensure that all that is their entitlement in that republic should be given to them.
The Nigerian Senate has urged heads of ministries, departments and agencies of government to focus on shoring up its revenue generation and ensure value for money in order to reduce the country's budget deficit and limit the federal government's dependence on borrowings. This formed the outcome of a one-day retreat on the 2024 appropriation bill organized by the Senate's Committee on Appropriations to orientate ministries, departments and agencies of government on what is expected of them for improved outcomes from the 2024 budget implementation.
The message is very simple. Revenue drive, and revenue drive. We cannot achieve much unless all the revenue agencies rise to the occasion.
Any agencies of the government that refuse to comply and do all that is necessary should be ready to have a zero budgets.
Nigeria's fiscal space is exhausted. And the solution, as you probably heard earlier today, is that we have to focus on the concessional funding, the cheaper funding, the even free funding, and climate financing is the way.
We will take a quick break. When we return, I would sit down with the chairman of the House Committee on Rules and Business. Don't go anywhere. There's more after this break. Thank you for joining us on the Hello Chambers today. And my guest is a member of the House of Representatives. His name is Honorable Francis Waive, and he's the chairman, House Committee on Rules and Business. It's good to have you on the program.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for
joining us on the Hello Chambers today.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank
so
you.
The House is 6 months old now, and tell us, how has it been? How has the journey been? And in terms of bills, motions, what has it been like in the House of Representatives?
Well, this 10th Assembly has been a very active one. More active in the sense of business on the floor than previous, the immediate past Assembly, at least for the period under review in comparison to the same time in the 9th Assembly, of which I was also a part. The difference really, I think, is because in this 10th Assembly, we have up to 80% new members.
Yeah.
And they're very excited about coming to the National Assembly, and they want to make their mark. So there's this push to want to be seen, want to be heard. And as Chairman Rules and Business, it's been challenging, you know, listening to 360 people who are proposing bills, proposing motions every day. You know, as we speak, I have about 700 and something motions awaiting my attention. But very importantly, I'm also thrilled that in 6 months, following Mr. Speaker's instruction and example, over 200 members have moved at least one motion. Over 200 members. Some have done 2, some have done 3, some have done 4. But at least one motion, over 200, have moved a motion in within 6 months. That will tell you how busy the chamber has been. And every legislative day, we've had at least, the lowest we've had is 14, 15 motions a day.
Your committee is considered the engine room of, you know, the House. And I was speaking to one of my colleagues in the National Assembly who covers the wing, and he was telling me there was a day that they had over 30 motions on the other paper. Is that how it usually is in the House of Representatives? How has it been, you managing such an A-list committee and with such humongous work in front of you?
Yeah, so, you know, like I mentioned, over 700 pending as we speak. So some days you are under pressure, you list up to 20, 30.
And do you consider all of those motions?
There have been days when we got up to 20-something and, you know, we put the rest to the next day. Okay. But on most legislative days, we finish what's on the other paper. And before any motion gets listed, I have to scrutinize, read through to be sure that it's something of national interest, something that's worth coming to the hallowed chamber to be mentioned on our floor. Be sure that it's something that promotes peace, unity and good governance in our country. So it's an honest responsibility. And to read through all of this, and particularly looking at the prayers on fish motion, and then you want to be sure that you have geographical spread, you have some form of balance.
I was going to come to that, because how has it been managing the interests of 360 lawmakers who also want to push forward an agenda, who want to push forward their voice? How has it been, managing their interests? It's
been hectic. The phone keeps ringing 24/7. Like I used to joke with my colleagues, they are my MDAs, you know. I don't have any ministry, department or agency of government that I oversight, but these are the people and what they bring forth. So it's a serious business, and members of the committee have been good and kind enough to lend their support, do a lot of reading, do a lot of editing, and it's been very challenging. That our committee will stay, we are the last to leave every day, and the next day we must ensure that the other paper is ready.
Speaking about the 2024 budget, lawmakers seem to be impressed with President Tinubu's proposed spending plan. You know, we saw a lot of kudos and everything. What makes this particular budget different from the previous budget that we've had?
Yeah, you know, the hardship in the country since the removal of the fuel subsidy has been biting on everybody, low and high. So when a budget comes that seems to address it, that is the issue, that's the catch. That is what makes all of us feel like, oh, this man, our president, he seems to know that people are suffering. And if he does A, B, C, D, the problems should be ameliorated. That is what makes it, you know, exciting to hear Mr. President, you know, deliver the budget that day. And very importantly too, the benchmarks are very realistic. Look at the exchange rate, 750. That's the highest we've had, naira to a dollar for a budget benchmark, you know. And then look at the production of crude oil, 1.78 million barrels per day. That's very realistic. You know, we've been making a lot of gains since this, the oil production has been rising, since this surveillance has gone up and theft is reducing. And we are believing for new investments to come in.
Okay, the most important thing about the 2024 appropriation bill is the passage. But after the passage, the implementation and the performance also, you know, it's going to be something that Nigerians will put their minds to. But if you look at previous budgets, no budget has been 100% implemented. We have not had a history of that. Why is it so difficult to implement a fiscal plan 100%?
Well, I think there are many reasons. Number one, the revenue part of the budget. When you make a projection, you are expecting to get that kind of revenue. So if, for example, you don't produce your quota, OPEC quota, or your benchmark that you gave yourself, you can't produce that per day, that's a challenge. If the price of crude oil drops, your revenue drops. But then political will has been the major problem, because we've had situations in this country where the price of crude oil went up and we had excess revenue. We had what we call the excess crude account, you know, but budget implementation wasn't still 100%.
Mr. President has requested that the National Assembly should try all in its power to ensure that this all-important fiscal bill is passed before the end of the year. Is this feasible?
We are working hard to make that happen. For instance, we are having joint hearings for MDAs to do their defense. Yesterday I was there when the Minister of Science and Technology came, and it was before both committees of the House and the Senate. And every day you have different agencies coming. So instead of doing it separately, the House and then Senate and all that, that's one of the decisions taken. And then working at weekends, working late, we are putting in our best to scrutinize the figures. You know, when he presented the budget, it was the general framework. But now we are looking at the breakdown as per each ministry, each department, and each agency. So the ways to achieve that: work late each day, work weekends, work with the Senate as though we are one house, but it's a bicameral legislature we operate. But for the purpose of this budget, we are working together. So you find joint chairmen presiding at budget defense sessions. We believe if we do this, on or before December 23, we should be able to pass the budget.
And what has been the cooperation from the heads of ministries, departments, and agencies? We've heard several warnings being given to them to ensure they appear in person.
Yes.
What has the cooperation level been like?
Well, it's been fantastic. I know that there are some issues for other matters not budget related. For instance, I've read the Public Petitions Committee chairman make a complaint about people not appearing. But for budget defense, so far so good. And I think it's because we have a president who is leading from the front. If you have a president where if you don't appear or you appear, nothing happens, then you find them neglect you or call your bluff. But where you have a president who has shown up and who is insisting that you show up and you are not traveling this period, I don't see any MDA head, any minister who is going to fail. So far, none has failed. So it's a new turn for our democracy. People need to realize that the legislature, without the legislature, there's no democracy. You can have the executive and the judiciary and call it a monarchy or dictatorship or a military government. But once there is a legislature, that's when you have democracy. That's when the people can speak through their representative. So it's important, I was saying it yesterday before the Honorable Minister of Science and Technology, that he is not appearing before us as individuals. He's appearing before 200 million Nigerians. Just because the 200 million can be present at once, that's why we are here. If that understanding is there, you'll find that we don't have issues with people turning up.
All right, I have a follow-up question to that, but we'll take a quick break now. Don't go anywhere. We still have more on the program. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The National Assembly is a busy place. As the bastion of democracy, it is a place where bills are presented, motions debated, laws made, and the yearnings of the people are laid bare. Come with us as we take you through the workings of the National Assembly. We take you through plenary, committee meetings, and probes, all to ensure smooth working of the democratic process.
Thank you for staying with us on the Hello Chambers, and I've been speaking with Honorable Francis Waive. He's the Honorable Member, he's the Chairman, House Committee on Rules and Business. Thank you for staying with us. So we have been speaking about the budget defense session and the cooperation of the MDAs, but we have seen several times the National Assembly issue, summoning the GMD of the NNPC, and he seems to not budge to the invite of the National Assembly. Why is his case different? Why have you not seen any kind of sanctions, or how would you, or you're giving him a very long rope to pull, I say?
Well, that's not peculiar to the MD of NNPC in the past. In the past, we've had the CBN governor and a number of others. But when, of course, we try to invoke the constitutional powers that we have to issue the warrant of arrest, then you see them running around and showing up. I think the problem really is for the head of government to ensure that all their subordinates, the rule of law is obeyed by all their subordinates. That has been the issue. And I also know that many of these agencies, their heads are quite busy people. Sometimes they are in offshore locations and traveled and all that. The challenge is that if it becomes too regular, that's where we frown at it at the National Assembly, and you hear all the noise that you talk about. We are hoping that for this 10th Assembly, that particular narrative will be different because of the new leadership we have at the executive. Otherwise, in the 10th Assembly that I belonged, it wasn't good. We are hoping that this 10th Assembly, that I'm privileged by the grace of my people from Ugele North, Ugele South, and Udu, of Delta State. I'm privileged to be part of the tent once again. We are hoping that it will be better this time. Their responses will be better. Otherwise, I can't think about that. I think it will be better.
All right. Speaking about the budget defense session, one of the critical issues being raised by most of the MDAs, and I would say in consideration of subsequent budgets or previous budgets, we've had them raise the issue of underfunding.
Yeah.
All MDAs are always underfunded. There's not enough money on ground. So can you tell us what is actually the problem? Is it that these monies are not really released to them as at when due, or what seems to be the problem? Why is this issue always coming up in every budget defense sessions?
Well, I think one of the reasons is because the country operates in budgeting an envelope system where a fixed amount is given to an MDA. So you share it between your personnel, overhead and capital and all that. You share that money, allocate rather. And for many of them, after they've taken their personnel and overhead costs, what is left for capital is usually tiny. That's why you hear that cry. But even then, another reason will also be because it's the normal human thing. Oliver is always asking for more execution. And
speaking
then
about that envelope
work.
Budgeting system that Nigeria operates in terms of budgeting, I'm sure it's to check the area of leakages and, you know, block all those areas of leakages and wastages, if I would say. But it doesn't seem to be working because if the problem of underfunding keeps to persist, shouldn't we explore other ways of the budgeting system rather than operating this envelope system of budget?
I personally prefer a zero-based budgeting system where everybody comes afresh, because if you use the envelope system, I have noticed over the years that they come with this about the same thing being repeated.
Yeah.
And when you ask, this must have been executed, you see ongoing. How many years will this be ongoing? So there's that challenge that, to me, doesn't really block the leakage that is thought to block. But if you bring in a zero-based system, which I personally prefer, everybody comes in with fresh ideas. This is the number of our personnel, this is the cost of salaries, this is the overhead, and this is the capital projects we want to go into, and this is the reason. And it's spread across the country. You can defend that budget. But if you come with a template and say, oh, this is what it has been in the beginning, so it is now, so shall it ever be, world without end, then it doesn't solve the problem. The leakages are still there.
We have seen the Appropriation Committee also hold a one-day retreat to bring together all these MDAs, you know, to show them the mechanism at which, you know, to make this work. How would you say, or what would be your advice to the MDAs to make this achievable, raising their revenue generation? It's not all about talks. Make it practicable for the MDAs.
Yeah, I think that heads of these MDAs should get some revenue projection that is tall. I mean, figures that are high, not just average or below average. And then there should be incentives to departments, units that meet or surpass their targets. Because currently, one worries, I was asking one yesterday, your IGRA for the whole year, you are approximating 1 million naira. That's 100,000 naira a month from an agency that have offices in 36 states. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. So there could be under declaration of internally generated revenue, and that's where we are coming in strongly in the 10th Assembly to ensure that revenue generated comes into government coffers. The Consolidated Revenue Fund gets it 100%, such that there are no theft and wastages. Those are the kind of things that could help increase government revenue and therefore provide more money to provide our infrastructural needs as a country. I don't think that categorization helps the economy. That's my thinking.
So are we going to see some of these MDAs being scrapped if they are not producing or if they are not generating any form of income?
No, what we intend to do is more detailed oversight.
Okay.
The MDAs should get ready. Mr. Speaker has said it, we are going to ensure that the oversight is thorough and effective, and that we get value for money.
All right. After the budget presentation, majority of lawmakers chorused "On your mandate we shall stand." I believe that is Tinubu's anthem. Was this an endorsement of his leadership style or the 2024 appropriation bill?
I think it's both. Okay. And you must not forget that we in the All Progressives Congress, we have the majority in both chambers.
Well, we saw some of the opposition actually joining in that chorus. So
yeah, because you know why it happened like that? They didn't know when they were carried away, because here is a man who spoke so eloquently, and not just being eloquent, he spoke to the issues. And some people who were expecting otherwise were shocked. So before you knew it, everybody was singing it. Yeah. So it was a very interesting experience. And you know, Mr. President had prepared the ground the way he came in, greeted everybody, shook hands. So everywhere was relaxed. And then he came with that superb presentation. You know, so when I hear people complain that why was that song rendered, the man who has won the election is the president of the country, for God's sake.
A lot of people believe that the legislative arm should be the one to check the executive arm instead, but seeing that kind of synergy. It depends on
what you define as check.
All right.
To check does not mean to fight.
All right.
You know, people mistake checks to mean that there has to be a combat, 2 elephants fighting, the grass suffering, budgets not being passed for 6 months, accusations in the press. That's not what it means to check. To check is to cross-check, to ensure that what is said is what is done. What is promised is what is delivered. And where that is not done is pointed out. That is what it means.
That is all on our program this week. Do not forget that you can always interact with TVC News on all our digital platforms. You can also watch a repeat of this program on TVC News at 7 a.m. on Sunday. Also, you can see this episode again on TVC News YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for watching. I am Tijesu Adeoye. See you next time.